Hi, it's Alex from the Wayback History Channel. In light of the recent events in Syria, I thought it might be a good idea to take a quick look at what exactly happened last week and what the situation is now. First, let's examine the situation in Syria 2 weeks ago before all of this started. The majority of the country, including the capital Damascus, was still held by the Syrian Arab Republic, the government of Bashar al-Assad and the Ba'ath Party, which had ruled the country for over 50 years. It had historically been aligned with the Soviet Union and more recently Russia, which, along with Iran, helped to prop up the government for the past 15 years amidst civil war. It hosted Russia's only Mediterranean naval base at the port of Tartus and also hosted the Russian Air Force. The Assad family and much of the ruling party were Alawites, a minority based along the Levantine coast, and had significant support during the years of civil war from Iran's Shia militias, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon, to whom the Assad regime facilitated weapons deliveries. The rule of Assad's Alawite minority highlights the issue of Syria's ethnic makeup. While the interior of the Syrian plain is mostly populated by Sunni Arab Muslims, there's also the Alawite minority along the coast, the Kurds in the north and northeast, the Druze in the south, significant pockets of Arab Christians, as well as several other groups of note. For the last decade or so, with the civil war having essentially frozen, the country has been partitioned between the Assad regime and several opposing polities. In the northwest was the Syrian Salvation Government, based in Idlib. This was formed by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, the Organization for the Liberation of the Levant. Its leader, al-Jilani, was formerly associated with al-Qaeda, earning him a designation as an international terrorist, though in 2017 he renounced global jihad to instead focus on Syrian nationalism and formed the Syrian Salvation Government. The Islamists have had an on-and-off relationship with Turkey over the years and began to build up the economy in Idlib by adopting the Turkish lira. In the north, along the border with Turkey, is the Syrian Interim Government. This is a direct client state of Turkey formed in the buffer zone occupied by the Turkish military. It was created with several purposes in mind, not only to offer an alternative to the Assad regime, but also to create a buffer between Turkey and the Syrian Kurds, who are accused of supporting Kurdish separatists in Turkey, and as a place to repatriate Syrian refugees who have fled to Turkey during the civil war. It's made up of a coalescence of numerous opposition groups and is guided by the Turkish military presence. The Kurds, meanwhile, control the administration of North and East Syria, a polity colloquially known as Rojava. The Kurds are a multinational, stateless population spread across Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Though accused of harboring the Kurdish separatists in Turkey, those in Syria and Iraq have long been friendly with the West. During the mid-2010s and with United States air support, the Syrian Kurds did much of the fighting on the ground to destroy the Islamic State. Having previously been repressed by the Assad regime, the Syrian Kurds, with the backing of the United States, set up their own administration. However, when Turkey later created their buffer zones in the north with reluctant American support, the Kurds turned back to the weakened Assad regime, which now conceded Kurdish autonomy, for their security, though continuing to be on fairly good terms with the United States. In the unpopulated deserts of the country's southeast lay the Al-Tanf deconfliction zone. This is the site of a United States military outpost that controls the Al-Tanf border crossing, seeking to interdict Iranian weapons deliveries being sent through Iraq into Syria to support the Assad regime and Hezbollah. The Americans also used the area to train a Syrian opposition group, the Free Syrian Army. After nearly a decade of frozen conflict, the situation began to change rapidly on November 27th of 2024. Al-Jilani's HTS and Syrian Salvation Government launched an offensive. Within 3 days, the offensive captured the historic city of Aleppo, the second largest in Syria, which had previously taken the Assad regime several years to capture. The fact that the city was abandoned by Assad's armed forces served as an early indication that his regime may be in collapse. Al-Jilani's forces were also bolstered in their offensive by the Turkish-backed forces of the Syrian Interim Government. Within 5 days, Al-Jilani's forces also captured the major city of Hama, again without much of a fight. At this point, it was clear that the Assad government was in total collapse, and other opposition groups also began to make their move. In the east, the Kurds crossed the Euphrates and captured the city of Deir ez-Zor. Meanwhile, in the south, the Druze, who had previously reconciled with the Assad government, took the cities of Daraa and Suwaida. From the American Al-Tanf deconfliction zone, the U.S.-trained Free Syrian Army took Palmyra, while al-Jawlani's forces took Homs, cutting off Assad from his base of support on the coast and from potential Russian help. At this point, al-Jawlani's forces, now also bolstered by the Turkish-trained forces, converged with the Druze from the south and the American-backed forces from the east around the capital Damascus. On December 8th, Bashar al-Assad fled to Russia, while Damascus fell to a coalition of the converging opposition groups. The coast also soon fell into al-Jawlani's hands, while the Russians held on to their coastal bases pending the political situation. Iran, meanwhile, finds itself cut off from direct access to Hezbollah and Lebanon, while Israel moved into the post-Yom Kippur War buffer zone that was vacated by Assad's forces when the regime collapsed. Israel also launched strikes on chemical weapons depots along with other Assad weapons caches. In the immediate aftermath of the fall of Damascus, the political situation began to come into some clarity. With al-Jawlani's HTS forces having conducted a lion's share of the operations, his Syrian Salvation Government became the strongest basis for the future of the state. With al-Jawlani having already integrated the support of the Turkish-backed forces, now the Kurds, the Druze, and the American-backed Free Syrian Army also tentatively agreed to participate in his Syrian transitional government. Seeking international support and looking to assuage the concerns of minorities, particularly Christians, al-Jawlani and HTS moderated their policies during the advance, attempting to strike a balance between their Islamist policies from their rule in Idlib and the need to govern a large, multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. Al-Jawlani did import most of his Idlib-based administration into the new government. For example, his prime minister in the Syrian Salvation Government had been Mohammed al-Bashir, who has now been announced as the new transitional prime minister of Syria. However, this transitional government has been announced as only temporary, serving through the 1st of March 2025 while a new permanent form of government is decided on. The transitional government has also announced the liberalization of the economy, with the centrally planned Ba'ath Party economic model to be disbanded. In addition, al-Jawlani has begun referring to himself by his birth name, Ahmed Hussein al-Shara, rather than his revolutionary nom de guerre. Much remains to be seen about the future of Syria, its politics, its foreign relations, and most importantly, its people. But what is for certain is that the previous chapter has come to a close. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in more content like this, be sure to check out the channel page. For now, I'm Alex. I am out.